Max Verstappen has finally broken his silence, and what he just leaked is going to send massive shockwaves through the headquarters of the International Automobile Federation. The reigning champion did not hold back a single word when he labeled these next-generation machines as nothing more than pumped-up Formula E cars. The absolute center of this controversy is the suffocating dependence on battery energy delivery that is changing the very DNA of racing. Can you even imagine being in the middle of a high-speed wheel-to-wheel battle and having to lift off the throttle on a straightaway just because your energy deployment ran dry? Verstappen is calling this anti-racing at its most frustrating level. The entire focus of the sport has shifted from a driver's raw talent in taming massive engine torque to a bureaucratic nightmare of managing buttons and toggles on a steering wheel. We are moving away from pure speed and toward a game of managing electrical percentages at 200 miles per hour. For the first time in the history of this organization, Red Bull Racing is hitting the track with a heart of its own design, the Red Bull 22 Power Unit. This creates a fascinating but mind-bending situation for the team. Despite his brutal criticism of the regulatory concept, Max confessed that he is positively surprised by how the power unit is actually behaving on track. The synergy between the new chassis and the energy delivery mapping seems incredibly refined. However, there is a technical hurdle that is causing sleepless nights over in Milton Keynes. While the engine performs well in isolation, the way it interacts with the active aerodynamics is creating an unpredictable platform. The engineers are working around the clock to ensure the transition between internal combustion and electric boost is seamless. But the fear of a reliability nightmare during a full race distance is looming over the garage like a dark cloud. While Carlos Sainz is begging the International Automobile Federation for some last-minute flexibility to overhaul the rules, Verstappen just doused those hopes in ice-cold water. He was categorical. With the billions of dollars already poured in by the major manufacturers, it is simply too late for any meaningful pivot. Formula One has effectively locked itself in a dark room and thrown away the key, leaving the teams to deal with the consequences of this technical straitjacket. Now, every single team on the grid has to grapple with the dreaded clipping. This is that sudden, violent loss of power at the end of the straights when the battery dies, and it makes the cars look like they are hitting a brick wall. Everyone is praying that the greatest spectacle in racing does not transform into a silent, electric parade where passing becomes a mathematical impossibility. If the battery is empty, you are a sitting duck, regardless of how late you can brake. If you thought Max Verstappen's complaints about these overly electric engines were just a case of a bad mood, you better buckle your seatbelt and hold on tight. What we are witnessing right now in the paddock is a high-stakes shadow theater where nobody wants to show their hand, yet everyone is desperately trying to peek at their neighbor's cards. It is a psychological war at 200 miles per hour, and the tension between the top teams is reaching a violent boiling point before the season even begins. Max Verstappen decided to completely blow the lid off the situation and accused Mercedes of practicing some serious, old-school sandbagging. For those of you who are new to this world, sandbagging is when a team like Mercedes runs with the metaphorical handbrake on to hide their true potential. The Dutchman was blunt and aggressive, telling everyone to just wait until Melbourne to see how much horsepower they magically find out of thin air. Max knows the engineers in Brackley are absolute masters at masking their battery energy delivery maps to avoid becoming a target for the International Automobile Federation before the first checkered flag. But the response from the Silver Arrows came fast and heavy, filled with a tone of deep suspicion that suggests Red Bull might be the ones playing dirty. George Russell dropped a massive bombshell by claiming that the new Red Bull car is suspiciously slow compared to their earlier simulations. According to the data analysis from the Mercedes garage, the car driven by Max and Sergio Perez lost a staggering 0.7 of a second in performance from 1 week of testing to the next. In the elite world of Formula One, losing nearly a full second without a major mechanical failure is like a jet suddenly disappearing from radar screens. Russell is openly suggesting that Red Bull is hiding a dirty trick or a secret chassis configuration regarding their suspension geometry that will only surface during the final minutes of qualifying session 3 on Saturday. The technical whispers suggest that Adrian Newey might have found a way to stall the rear diffuser at high speeds to gain an unfair advantage, and they are hiding the telemetry until it truly matters. The paddock is buzzing with the idea that the Milton Keynes squad is simply baiting their rivals into a false sense of security before the lights go out. Meanwhile, Toto Wolff is busy playing his usual chess moves, throwing the favorite tag right back into Red Bull's lap by claiming they are the absolute gold standard in energy deployment on the straightaways. Wolff swears that the Red Bull 22 power unit can sustain its electrical boost for significantly longer than any of its rivals, which would be a massive advantage in race conditions. It is a classic political maneuver. Praise your opponent so that if you lose, the defeat was expected, but if you win, you look like an improbable hero who overcame the odds. But is the efficiency of the Red Bull 22 motor the real deal? Or is Mercedes just trying to shift the crushing pressure off their own shoulders? The cold technical truth is that with these new regulations, the fuel weight and energy recovery system mapping change everything about the car's behavior. A car can look like a heavy truck when carrying 220 pounds of fuel, only to transform into a literal rocket ship when it is down to 22 pounds with the battery set to attack mode. Mercedes seems to be holding all the aces right now, but Red Bull never gives away the gold before the battle begins. The news that just dropped like a massive bomb in the Melbourne paddock is enough to make your skin crawl. We are talking about a technical nightmare that goes far beyond mere lap times or aerodynamic efficiency. The brand new Honda power unit is reportedly generating a vibration so violent and aggressive that it could cause permanent neurological damage to the hands of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. This is a level of mechanical failure we haven't seen in the modern era of Formula One. Adrian Newey, in a rare moment of brutal honesty that we almost never see from a high-ranking technical lead, admitted that the current car is essentially a jackhammer on wheels. Fernando Alonso himself confessed to insiders that he can no longer endure more than 25 laps before completely losing the sensation in his fingers. Now do the math. How do they expect to complete the 58 laps of the Australian Grand Prix? The numbers simply do not add up, and the physical toll is reaching a critical breaking point. It is deeply ironic to see the genius of aerodynamics, the man everyone expected to deliver the perfect machine, now struggling with rearview mirrors and taillights literally shaking off the chassis. These components are falling onto the track because the car is hitting a frequency of resonance that is tearing it apart. This is not a surface-level problem. The technical integration is fundamentally flawed. The marriage between the Honda power unit, the new gearbox designed in-house by Aston Martin, and the specialized fuel provided by Aramco has created a disastrous harmonic frequency. This mechanical frequency is so intense that it disrupts the driver's ability to even see the track clearly at high speeds. While Mercedes is busy sandbagging to hide their true pace and Red Bull remains silent in the shadows, Aston Martin is forced to conduct emergency physical therapy just to keep their drivers in the seat. Lance Stroll is in an even more desperate situation than Alonso, predicting that his body can only withstand 15 laps before his grip fails entirely. This is a humiliating scenario for a team that has invested billions of dollars. The total failure of the research and development restructuring at Honda after their departure from Red Bull is now exacting a devastating price on the Silverstone-based team. The lack of synergy is palpable, and the car's reliability is a ghost of what it once was. The situation has become so bizarre that even Valtteri Bottas, who is now driving for the Cadillac outfit, took a public and heavy-handed swipe at the team's misfortune. Bottas sarcastically remarked that the struggling Mercedes team would only manage to catch up to Aston Martin in the very last race of the year, a stinging insult aimed directly at the team's massive lack of reliability. Newey swears there is light at the end of the tunnel for the 2026 season, but Fernando Alonso, at 44 years of age, simply does not have the luxury of time to wait for a neurological miracle. The veteran champion is staring down the barrel of a completely wasted season due to mechanical incompetence. If a definitive technical solution is not discovered during free practice 2 tomorrow, Aston Martin faces the very real and embarrassing risk of becoming the first team in history to abandon a Grand Prix due to excessive vibration. It sounds like a joke, but for the nervous systems of these elite drivers, it is a deadly serious reality. How can you hit a corner at 190 miles per hour when you cannot feel the steering wheel in your palms? The entire paddock is in a state of shock, wondering if the team will be forced to drastically turn down the engine deployment just to keep the drivers safe. This would effectively turn them into sitting ducks on the long straights of Albert Park. What do you think about this absolute chaos? Can Adrian Newey find a way to stop the jackhammer effect? Or is Aston Martin's season already over before the first lights go out? While the entire paddock in Melbourne is obsessed with the deafening roar of the new power units and the absolute disaster of the Aston Martin vibrations, a silent bomb is about to blow up in the faces of some major players. The 2026 season represents a blank page for the engineering departments. But for many drivers on the grid, their rap sheets are looking incredibly stained and dangerous. This year, the stakes are not just about who has the fastest machine, but who can actually stay on the track without getting banned by the officials. If you think the pressure of making a debut for the Haas team is overwhelming, imagine doing it with 10 penalty points already hanging over your head. Oliver Bearman is the isolated leader of this infamous blacklist and is currently a mere 2 points away from being banned for an entire race weekend. The young driver went completely overboard with his reckless antics during the 2025 season, committing amateur blunders under red flag conditions and causing multiple avoidable collisions that infuriated the stewards. For Bearman, the Australian Grand Prix is not a quest for speed. It is a desperate mission for survival. Any aggressive wheel banging or a simple failure to respect a technical flag signal will force the Haas team to scramble for a reserve driver before they even finish unpacking their suitcases. The psychological weight of knowing that one minor mistake could end your weekend is a massive handicap that his rivals will certainly try to exploit during the high-speed sections of the Albert Park circuit. Even the titans of the sport are not immune to this looming crisis. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen enter the 2026 campaign with 3 penalty points each. While that might seem like a safe margin, the new technical regulations demand a much more aggressive energy deployment strategy and have produced cars that are notoriously difficult to handle through low-speed corners. The risk of unintended contact or wheel banging is at an all-time high because the drivers are still learning the torque curves of these hybrid beasts. Meanwhile, Carlos Sainz, now representing the Williams team, is carrying 4 points and a very heavy burden of responsibility. He has been vocal about the fact that the team desperately needs him on the track to provide feedback for car development, but his historical tendency to force rivals off the track could prove fatal to his season. If he loses his temper in a wheel-to-wheel battle, the Williams team might find themselves without their lead driver for a crucial championship round, which would be a catastrophic blow to their technical progress. The most fascinating technical and legal controversy of the week involves Valtteri Bottas. The Finnish driver, who has now moved over to the Cadillac outfit, was facing a 5-place grid penalty that had been hanging over him since the final race of 2024. However, this is where the brilliant legal team at Cadillac found a clever loophole. Because the penalty was issued more than 12 months ago, they successfully argued that Article B 2.5.4 of the sporting regulations effectively cleared his record. This is what we call a total legal masterstroke in the paddock. While Bearman is praying to avoid even the slightest touch from a rival, Bottas is walking around with a huge smile, having escaped a penalty that could have completely ruined Cadillac's historic debut in the category. The inconsistency of the International Automobile Federation remains a hot topic, as one driver faces a career-threatening ban while another benefits from a bureaucratic technicality that wipes the slate clean just in time for the lights to go out. Do you think the International Automobile Federation is being too harsh on the younger drivers like Bearman? Or is it fair that veteran experience allows some to escape through loopholes? What would you do if you were the boss at Haas or Williams with drivers who are so close to a total race ban? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let's debate this driver blacklist. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a beat. A big hug, thanks, and I am out.